And action. Hey everyone, Dags had a question about collagen supplements, and how, or if they're helpful specifically for skin. Now, collagen can be used in other parts of the body. It has, considering the fact that collagen makes up the majority of the connective tissue of the body. There's different types of collagen. We don't have to get into that. But just consider collagen has your structure, the thing that's the basic building block for holding tissue together and forming structure, whether it's the eyeballs, blood vessels, skin, hair, nails, all that stuff, even the lining of the gut, all that stuff is made, or at least the backbone of that stuff is all collagen. So, if this is the first time you're finding me though, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the alert button to find out when I do new videos. Let's just talk about some of the... so I had to do a little bit of research. Mostly I go to NIH, the National Institute of Health, and do a search on PubMed about collagen and its benefits. And I'll tell you, most of the information I got from the studies, they're okay. They don't really jump out as being statistically significant. I think there's a lot of pilot studies, small studies, randomized a bit to give a fair result that have shown a potential use for collagen, but nothing spectacular. But whenever we make the suggestion for using a supplement, you always have to weigh the benefits to the risks. So I think if we first go through some of the reasons, you'll understand about how this can be a benefit if you're going to try to do your best with avoiding sun, tobacco, stress, get good sleep, stay hydrated, and you still have wrinkled skin. I think it would be helpful. But let's talk about the basics first. So what is collagen? How do we get whole food building blocks into the system to be utilized properly? Well, that's how essentially we're going to discuss this collagen thing. So what usually happens is animals or plants are your whole food, your fuel sources, and they come in big structures, like a whole animal or a undigested, unprocessed plant. So consider that your big house. And then what happens is you have to tear apart that house to get the basic building blocks out of the house. So you have to get, these are supposed to be bricks, lumber, that's supposed to be a piece of wood, and then a nail, and then a hammer. Sorry, but that's the best I could do in a short notice. So these are where the house that you have from the earth gets turned into building blocks. That's usually what happens in the stomach. And then once the building blocks or the house is broken down into its building blocks, then after leaving the stomach, it gets into the bloodstream, specifically the portal vein, and then when in the bloodstream, it heads to the liver. And the liver usually will start to repackage these building blocks into your own tiny house. Now, and that way we stay, using the fuel sources from the outside world, we stay up to date with our own house and bulletproof to the elements, right? That's how it usually works. So if you think about if your body is having issues with service, like it's having a problem with the roof, it's leaking, or the outside shingles or the siding is getting dented or moldy, you want to replace that. The only way to replace that is to get the building blocks that somebody else manufactured and then physically replace it. Well, in the body, if your skin is getting wrinkled, if you're having sagging skin at different places, if you've lost a lot of weight and you just have a lot of redundant skin, you want to be able to replace that in your own house properly. Along the lines of what bodybuilders will do, or people with irritable bowel syndrome. Irritable bowel syndrome is when the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, they don't work right because they're being either taxed with stress, hit by toxins, invaded by foreign bacteria, bad bacteria, or parasites, or genetically altered and expressing disease from your family. So collagen does help that. However, we'll get into the details later, but if you are IBS sufferer or using collagen for building up muscle fast instead of protein, then again, you still need to, if you're going to build up the inside of the house, the superstructure of the house, you'll still have to have the building blocks available. And this is where the problem comes in, because sometimes a normal standard American diet won't have enough of the building blocks, because technically the standard American diet is you're eating from crappy material. That means, say, your house, that your whole food that you're eating is not really whole food, it's crappy whole food. So it translates into not having enough building blocks. And if you don't have enough building blocks, you can't make the repairs. And whether you're talking about skin, hair, and nails, or muscle and gut, you have to have a nice house. I don't have my pen to redo this thing, but and that's the basics. So there are a couple of different sources of collagen. Some people will get it in package form, in pill form, or in powder form, and there'll be different powders, different packages, and usually you'll have to read the back, the nutrition panel, to make sure it has what you're looking for. And you do have to do some research. You don't have to, well, it'd be interesting if you do a PubMed, it's free. So if you do a PubMed search, you can enlighten yourself. And some of these studies are a little bit complicated or boring as heck to read, but you can probably start looking. What I would do is you search the toolbar on PubMed. I'll put a link down below for collagen and skin, for example. And then you bring up a couple of the top hits. And what you want to do is go to, there's an abstract. This is what an abstract is. And you go to the results and the discussion. That's usually at the bottom of the abstract. And you can say, it'll usually be summarized as far as the presentation of these scientists, whether it's a positive or negative result, if it was statistically significant, without having to furrow through the definitions of all these things. And then if you read enough of them, you'll be able to figure out, okay, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not worth it. But what I was eventually able to do was that there is hardly any downside, which is good. Usually when you take in a collagen matrix supplement, it is full of amino acid. Most of this, in fact, all of it comes from animal. So if you are a vegan, you're out of luck, because it's hard to find collagen in a vegan diet or vegetarian diet. So you do have to curb your tendencies and consider taking for a short amount of time just to see if it helps you. And it usually comes from an animal gelatin. It's the layer underneath the skin that's full of the soft structures. And when a factory or an industry takes animals that have gone to slaughter, they'll try to get the product of gelatin. It's not jello, it's gelatin, it's soft stuff. And sometimes they'll get it from fish skin or the soft parts of what's rejected in some of the slaughterhouses. And they'll try to break that stuff down. When they break the stuff down, they usually will hydrolyze it. So they take a solid object, like a cow, for example, or a fish, and they'll take that solid object and break it down or hydrolyze it into powdered form. When they hydrolyze it, it essentially makes it easier to break down once it gets into the stomach. So you always want to check your nutrition panel to make sure the collagen has been hydrolyzed. And it is an extra step, which is usually what you're going to be paying for. The more you process and the better the quality of the collagen, then the more you're going to pay. And I would be very picky with this, because you don't want to be taking in animals that are sick or factory. You want to be buying from factories that don't care where they get their product from. So it would be important to research your company. Again, if you can find a collagen substitute or a collagen supplement that has been hydrolyzed, it'll be easier on the gut, and it'll guarantee that it'll get into your bloodstream faster. So what usually happens is when you take in collagen, whether in capsule form or powder form, you put it into the stomach. The stomach does what it does best by emulsifying and digesting or pre-digesting with acid. And it takes a solid, turns it into the liquid. So it takes a solid from the external environment and turns it into the building blocks, the liquid. Once the solid food is turned into the building blocks, it continues down to the small intestine, at which point it gets absorbed from the lining, through the lining of the small intestine into the bloodstream. When it gets into the bloodstream via the portal vein, everything goes to the liver. And the liver is kind of the shifting house of saying, okay, you're taking an amino acid, you're going to put it over here because you need it. Or you're going to take this fatty acid, you're going to put it over here because you need it. So the liver is just, it doesn't stop, it's 24/7, but it does all that stuff beautifully. That's why if you take alcohol and you're also doing the supplement at the same time, probably not a good idea, because the alcohol gets priority. It should get priority because it's a toxin, and then all that amino acid stuff gets to back up a bit. So your liver can back up, so you have to treat it properly. Especially if you're going to be doing this stuff, you're going to be investing in this. You want to be eating properly, you want to be sleeping right, you want to be avoiding any toxins as best as possible, because you want to see if it works after about 3 to 4 months, and it does take that amount of time before you see these building blocks create a better house. So you can't just expect that you'll turn around overnight. Don't do that. It takes time. So you have to be patient. You can't have too many variables. So if you're going to be going on vacation or using a sun lamp, which you shouldn't be, or changing your diet, you're not going to know. If you have too many variables in there, you're not going to know, is this working or is it the other variable? And if you do have positive results, like you see skin tightening, the wrinkles are filling in, the hair's coming in faster, well, that's cool. But then you're going to have to continue with the collagen and the diet that you made a change with, and the lifestyle change that you decided to throw in there too, forever. Because usually what happens at 30, 40, and 50 is the body slows down in its creation of collagen. So the body slows down in fixing its ultimate great house. It sends its building blocks to other areas. So collagen in particular, or the creation of new collagen, is not considered a priority. It's usually sent to the brain or to the hormones or to other things. So because it naturally slows down, if you naturally slow down, in addition to not having the building blocks, you're at a big disadvantage. So sometimes even if you have those building blocks available and you're like 50 to 60, well, you'll be on collagen for a long time until you get tired of spending the money. And that would be the only downside, is spending the money to buy this stuff. Kind of expensive if you ask me. And with the standard American diet being so limited and deficient, there's other things I would suggest you take advantage of first. Now, it depends on your priorities, obviously, but vitamin D, magnesium, B12, omega-3 oils, all those things are important just as well. So if you don't take care of that stuff and then you go straight for the skin and the hair, well, again, that's your priority, but I would always suggest a well-balanced diet is always first. And if you have medical disease, though, you want to take care of the medical disease before you start investing in this stuff, because one of the problems is, sorry that I erased some of this, if you have the best house, external house available to give you the best building blocks available, but the builders for your own body are too busy fighting a cancer or fighting an autoimmune disease, don't be investing in that stuff just yet. Now, certainly the building blocks can help the autoimmune disease, but if you're using these things to figure out, can I just have this help my skin, it's going to be confusing, and because the body's going to be shifting it. The liver, again, is going to be sending everything to the fight. And it's not going to say the skin's a fight, it's going to say that cancer in the pancreas is a fight. So change and fix everything else first. That has to be taken care of as far as deficiency, disease, presentation, high blood pressure, obesity, poor sleep. Change all that stuff first, and then investigate. So if you notice a little bit of an improvement, then cool, but wait 3 months, sometimes 6 months. And that's where a lot of the studies fell short. They were limiting their objective findings to the patient, and the patient will have operator bias. So sometimes if you tell a patient that in 3 months you'll see better skin and you give them the capsule or the powder, some people will have a placebo effect and start to notice a change on their own, or start to carry themselves differently, and then they'll interpret that as a change. And what the one variable you cannot control, especially if you live in Chicago, is the weather changes. So if you're starting now and suddenly spring and summer come, your skin will change with spring and summer too. Just like the grocery availability of fruits and vegetables will change in spring and summer, maybe that could be the variable that changes your skin. When in all, this limited study that you're trying to perform on yourself, it might not be the collagen, it might be the other variables. So that's why you have to keep everything. You want to make sure everything is up to speed as far as your building, your own building. You want to make sure the variables are low. You want to make sure you're not paying too much money, and you also research the company and its ingredients. Remember the hydrolyzed collagen, and hopefully you'll see a result. As far as I've seen some folks talk about bone broth, especially Dr. Axe. I think he has a great product. I am suspect for guys that put information out but also sell a product. He sounds like he's trustworthy, but I would be a little bit apprehensive on taking, and I'd also be apprehensive on how much I spend. So just be careful. Buyer has to be aware about where you're going, how long to try, how long to wait, and then maximizing on the results so that you do have good results. Hopefully it works, but good question, because a lot of people have the same ideas that you had, and I hope this helps. Otherwise, so if you have any comments, put them down below on what you found with regards to collagen and which brands you're using. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next clinic.